8 to 10 million professional services business, and like whatever commissions we're getting are going to be super low level line items for us that just don't matter.
In the new ecosystem of today, it's very complicated.
How can you create as much cross-pollination as possible? And inevitably that sort of creates value.
Recognizing that you're an ingredient in someone else's solution, as opposed to trying to build that solution.
That enables us to sort of go deeper with Stripe faster than we otherwise would. And effectively that becomes free revenue.
Sharing our solution.
Welcome to Make Them Famous, the podcast about partner enablement.
The only podcast to uncover both how partner teams enable their partners
and how other department leaders enable their partner teams to achieve success.
All right, welcome back to the pod, partnerships people or CEOs or agencies. Whoever you are, I think this episode will give you value. I don't know what you think about what's going on in partnerships right now, but it's definitely electric. There's a lot of opinions, a lot of growth, and a lot of new territory that we all need to explore and get better at together. What I want to talk about in today's episode is a little bit around go-to-market, a lot of it around ecosystems, and dig into this very unique persona that we are going to talk to today. My guests are Tsao, head of partner programs at Stripe, and Connor Jeffers, founder and CEO of Aptitude8 and A8 Labs. I get to speak to these two at a very unique stage in both of their businesses. Aptitude8 launched A8 Labs recently to create products that bridge the technical gaps between two products or inside HubSpot, specifically on Operations Hub. Stripe has gone all in on their ecosystem development. A little about Stripe's size for those of you who aren't familiar. They are 11 years old. They are financial infrastructure, and they do about 640 billion in volume, up 60% year over year. They support 500 million API calls per day, 10,000 per second. And they have grown their partnerships team to over 100 people. The two are 6 months invested in their strong partnership at the time of this recording. Aptitude8 being a solutions partner of Stripe, while their subsidiary A8 Labs, is simultaneously an ecosystem partner of Stripe. Very unique. This is very cool stuff. I get super excited in this episode, but we're going to dig into how Stripe won the commitment from Connor to become an early partner of theirs. What role do solution partners play in Stripe's ecosystem? How Stripe buckets partner types, this unique type of partner, why they are also an ISV, the challenge for Tim and the team to sell the ecosystem play internally, what it means to enable a partner to build a product that solves a pain point versus building a feature that solves it, how Connor envisions the Stripe partnership to bring 30% of their gross revenue in the coming year, how Tim's partner program will enable Connor to hit that goal. And we end on some advice on certifications and how to ensure ROI of those certifications. This episode will be great for CEOs, CROs, solutions partners, agencies deciding whether or not to build a product, anyone on the partnership team that's involved in ewosystem strategy. But first, please take 3 minutes to hear about 3 tools that will help you succeed in partnerships. Well, we could not make this podcast famous without help from our sponsors. For sponsorship, we looked to 3 platforms that help you find, activate, enable, and manage your partner program. These 3 tools may be the only tools that you'll need to effectively run partnership. The tools in question are Reveal for account mapping and running co-selling operations, Partner Stack for scaling a multi-tiered commission-centric program, and Partner Hub for working closely day-to-day with MSPs, managed service providers. Partner Stack probably needs no introduction, They work with top tech companies like Monday.com, Unbounce, Intercom, and Webflow. And it's a company that we recommend when you are ready to scale your commission-centric, usually a multi-tiered partner program. Check out Partner Stack to scale partnerships. Reveal, again, when you're ready to really get into the revenue operation of partnerships, that means that you want to map accounts, see what the overlap is, see who I'm targeting that you're also targeting, see who I'm targeting that you're not targeting, and come up with a strategy to get those accounts into my pipeline, into your pipeline, and to build that pie, that bigger and bigger pie together. Oftentimes, you'll invite a partner to an account mapping solution that has a paywall too early, which is prohibitive for a lot of the target audiences that our partner programs are after, the digital agencies. If you invite them to Reveal, you can trust that they won't hit a paywall. There's 360 account mapping UI in Reveal for free, and it is at reveal.co. Finally, Partner Hub. Again, it's a partner operations platform. Partnerships has a lot going on. Who's doing what at what stage in the partnership are the questions that many of my partner managers ask themselves. Partner Hub is here to solve for what are we doing with partnerships, who's doing what, where are our partners, and if we need to find more, are we able to go and shop for more partners? Partner Hub answers all of those questions with yes, and it is free. It's free for top tech companies like Apollo, AudioEye, Smith, Growbots, Recart, Customer.io, and it's free for digital agencies like Hawk Media, Trellis, Aptitude8, Creative Trends. A lot of these tech companies and agencies use Partner Hub to find and align with each other. MSP, managed service provider, digital agency, as well as SaaS tech companies. So check it out, partnerhub.app. And again, thank you for listening. I'll let you get back to the show. All right, guys, welcome to the show. What is going on with you and your role? And then we'll get into how this partnership started. Tim, let's start with you.
Great to be here, Alex, and nice to see you, Connor. So my name is Tim Tsao. I lead the partner program at Stripe, also known as Stripe Partner Ecosystem. I've been here for 18 months, and it's been a great experience so far to actually start a new partner ecosystem at Stripe. It's a rare kind of career experience to build from fresh as opposed to inheriting a partner ecosystem and programs. So that's my role, and glad to be here.
Yeah, that word ecosystem is popping up all over the place these days. I don't know if it's just the timing or if there's something in particular that's going on. Maybe something in the water, but all of a sudden the word ecosystem seems to be the hot word this year, at least this last quarter. But Connor, you're deep into this now. I mean, we started working together, I think, a few years ago when you were, I think, more on the implementation. Yes, you're doing a lot of different things, but I think you've went really deep into the platform partnerships and building out these awesome, stacks for your clients and servicing those. Savvy implementation partner, I think, is a good word that we use to describe your agency. But let's learn a little bit about you and what's going on for those who haven't heard one of our past episodes.
For sure. I'm Connor Jeffers. I run two kind of businesses, and partner stuff is pretty key to both. So one is Aptitude8, which is a professional services organization. We're primarily a HubSpot partner, though. One of the reasons that I'm excited to talk to you guys today is Stripe is a newer addition to our sort of core set, and sort of adding additional technology partners into the mix. Today, we primarily work with implementation, customization, extensibility, integration for the HubSpot platform, and then usually any other tools that are attached to it. So our expertise doesn't kind of end at HubSpot, but we sort of look at kind of HubSpot as that hub, and then everything else is a spoke. And if HubSpot's in your stack, we can help you build really amazing customer experiences on top of that as sort of your CRM platform of choice. And the secondary business is 8 Labs, where we're building applications on top of HubSpot. So it's kind of a HubSpot app studio. We have 5 live applications in the marketplace today, all sort of SaaS applications, utilities. You install them into your core HubSpot portal, things like Clone Attack for easy automated cloning of records, or Associate to link records. And then our most recent application is called Zebra, which is a really deep Stripe HubSpot connector. So what Zebra does is it sort of syncs all of the Stripe data back into HubSpot, rebuilds the whole Stripe data model inside of HubSpot, and then lets you sort of use HubSpot on top of all that Stripe data. So creating subscriptions or transactions, modifying, updating, upgrading, downgrading, doing anything that you might do if you are a subscription-based business, all from within HubSpot. And then, of course, reporting on that data and then leveraging it and sort of all that powerful HubSpot automation as well. And so both of those businesses are heavily partner focused, where we're doing HubSpot and Stripe services. And then our products obviously are sort of an extension of other sides. So I do a lot in both the service provider, service partner type angle, as well as the technology partner side.
I love it. Yeah. A couple of the things that you mentioned there, custom apps. I think this is one of the things that really differentiates Aptitude8 from a lot of HubSpot inbound agencies out there. Yes, HubSpot partner, but the day-to-day and kind of what you guys, what brings customers to you guys is that level of, hey, you can build custom stuff for me inside of HubSpot, outside of HubSpot, connect my other applications, yes, and support all of that, not just do one thing and let you go. Very valuable as a partner to the whole ecosystem. So Stripe, you're in this world now, this ecosystem world. You've got service providers, you've got application builders, trying to bring them all together in this nice harmonious partner program that you have now, Tim, or are working to have. But let's talk about where it's at and what the word ecosystem really means to Stripe, and then we'll kind of merge the two as we get more into this.
Happy to expand on that. So you're right. Ecosystem is such a hot button now. It's probably a mix between, I think, a recognition that it is leverage of growth without necessarily investing in your own P&L for, headcount for your own sales team. So that's one element of it. And interestingly, Stripe had this realization, and one was enterprise. Another one was building out SaaS and banking as a service. And then the third piece, and my pillar or leg of the stool, is ecosystem. At the time, we had a strong, I'll call it, list of integrations. We had a community that had developed extensions based on our core Connect product, but we didn't really have a thriving partner ecosystem that was robust across the different types. And so at that time, the decision was made, let's build up that part of the business. Let's create a formal division of the company called Go-to-Market Partners. And so Dorothy Copeland, my boss, was brought in from Mike Clayville. Mike Clayville is our chief revenue officer, came from ex-AWS, and Dorothy's ex-AWS, ex-IBM, where I had the pleasure of working with her. And she built out a professional team, including me, people like me that have had ecosystem experience their whole career. So I've been in channel in one flavor or another, whether it's marketing or sales or programs, for my entire 20 plus years of working. So the rest of my peers are all this type of professional that have been in the ecosystem. We set out to then build a program, build a partner capacity across all the geographies that we work in. And so for me and the program, this meant we really started kind of like April or May of 2021, and we launched earlier this year in April the partner ecosystem. And what that means is that it's really the rails or the infrastructure which partners engage with Stripe. It includes the benefits that we provide. It includes the different types of partners that they can gear in, the resources, the benefits, financial incentives, as well as digital surfaces like a partner portal, partner directory, website, other things that partners rely on. Meanwhile, I have peers out there that work with great partners like Connor that are on the ground with partner development managers, driving business together, joint business planning, building integrations, building consulting businesses, and then joint pursuit of customers, like going after HubSpot customers together. So we have that happening all over the world in the geographies that we operate in. It's the program, Stripe Partner Ecosystem, has been live since April, and it's been fantastic. We've seen great pickup of new partners come in. Our prior partners have evolved into this program and taken advantage of a lot of the benefits and new resources that are available to them. But I think it's, a shared challenge that kind of we've had along the way is that Stripe has always been a direct motion. And I would imagine many of your audience have come from a legacy of a direct sales motion and not necessarily been in ecosystem yet. And so selling that proposition, that was no easy ride. The whole proposition really had to come together as a full go-to-market package. And so, happy to talk more about that, but that was a key learning through the way and challenge that we overcame and really was able to bring everyone on board with us to be successful.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I've got a couple things out of that I want to get deeper into. We'll go back to Connor for a sec, but keep this in mind, Tim. Agencies building apps within Stripe's infrastructure versus apps building integrations. I think when you say the word ecosystem, everybody kind of has a different definition in their head, a different vision, a different persona in their head. But now we're in this world where it's not just, hey, let's convince this app over here to build an integration with us, or let's build an integration and then go to market with that bigger company, bigger app, bigger market. But let's bring service providers that can actually build middleware and connect us, and then we can co-sell into that bigger ecosystem, but with Connor, Aptitude8, and their new products that they're bringing to the table. That's not a new world. I mean, it's been happening in Salesforce. Atlassian has a big ecosystem play like this, but I don't think it's talked about enough. I don't think there's a real strategy out there for this. It's very new in that sense. But Connor, let's talk to you about the mentality here that you guys have been in, where you're hiring engineers, you're building products, you still are a service provider, you still are an agency, but you're definitely bridging that gap in a pretty unique way, I think. So the question around that is really just, what is the Stripe partnership and why is it sort of this unique animal for you? And what are some of the business questions that you guys have to answer, and some of the things that you have to think about while you're going into this, not service provider, but we have this product and then we build services on top of our product with Stripe as a partner. Lot to think about, lot to go into.
Sure. So the very sort of like brief history, and then I'll talk about sort of like how we think about it with Stripe and HubSpot and sort of where we fit in here. So is I had played a bunch in the Salesforce ecosystem, and I always felt like I got there too late. And there were a lot of people who'd built really incredible companies and done really, really well in that universe. And when I sort of saw HubSpot and increasing where I'm seeing Stripe is, there's these companies that are coming into this space, and this ecosystem play is becoming part and parcel to their go-to-market strategy. And I think as a technology organization, you hit a size where you simply can't be everything to everyone, but you sort of need to continually expand that TAM and continue to needing to be able to sell into it. And so the best way to do that is to actually have this network of folks around you that are building either use case specific or industry specific or functionality specific solutions in combination with the core platform and the core product. And so that's where I think you see like the app fires or the folks in like Bold and in the Shopify universe. And that's where we really are trying to position a labs. And what we're doing there is really saying that we recognize strategically HubSpot or Stripe or really any other technology provider can only solve for so many use cases. And the correct positioning for them is, let's become a platform and let's build tooling that other people can actually build solutions on top of. And so for us, that kind of does two things. One, they're creating a market and they're creating demand for something by the nature of them existing that their out of the box feature set can't necessarily solve for. And so we don't have to go and do a whole bunch of demand gen to prove that there's someone who wants this, because Stripe or HubSpot, whatever other Goliath in the room, is creating that for us. And the secondary piece is they end up doing, so it's somewhat similar to what Tim was saying on how the services provider ecosystem goes and allows you to, without putting it on your P&L, create demand and capture some of that market. Very similar in sort of that app provider world, where by selling HubSpot plus Zebra or Stripe plus Zebra, Stripe sellers can sell things at a higher clip and get faster activation because Zebra helps them do that. And similarly, on the HubSpot side, there's people who have payments use cases and complex Stripe infrastructure, and they need to tie that into their core CRM platform, and they can't do that either. And so what we can do is actually, with those products, enable sellers to sell more effectively, which inevitably means they end up bringing us into those, and we're capturing customers without necessarily having to spend on that acquisition channel. And so I think those two things become really, really harmonious. And when we think about sort of the flywheel and the strategy attached to that, is how can we make working with us accelerate what Stripe sellers and HubSpot sellers are able to do, and how can we make working with them open up new TAM and new opportunity for them to capture. And that's how we sort of both go faster together.
Okay. No, this is super interesting, because I'm dealing with this now, so my head's a little bit in this, but it's a situation where, okay, well, there are features that Stripe can build and connections that Stripe can build. Of course, you guys have resources, very big company. And then there is the case of enabling an Aptitude8 to build it. And maybe Aptitude8, which probably happened, thought of this product before anyone at Stripe thought of it. Maybe they heard a pain point and they decided to capitalize it, maybe. But there are internal conversations at Stripe, probably, I'm guessing, and other companies where they're like, this is a product we could build, but why not enable an agency, service partner, just a partner in general, to build that bridge, and then we work together to go to market and bring it there. So I want to talk any comments you have on what Connor just said, but then that part of the discussion I think is super interesting. So I do want to talk about that real quick. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, 100%. I think Connor's comments were brilliant and spot on to what a new ecosystem is. So prior ecosystems are all about resale, kind of traditional, your vendors in the center, and everyone's the spoke of that. In the new ecosystem of today, it's very complicated, and it's about value creation for the customer, but done through many, many ways. And so at Stripe, as an example, we recognize that. And in fact, over 40% of our businesses are payments platforms or companies that embed payments, but they only sell their own product. They care about their product. We are an element of what they do. The more they sell, the more we get. So that's a fundamental model of Stripe. And so I think that's what you're hearing from Connor. We also recognize that some want to develop on Stripe's platform. So we've, in fact, earlier this year in May, we launched Stripe apps. And that is the ability to have native apps inside of Stripe's payment product. So that's one choice that you can have too. So you can choose, depending on what the customer, what your business model is, to develop your own platform, develop a services business around it, or to build it onto Stripe, or just use Stripe as a service and product. I mean, there's so many ways that you can do it. Broadly, we just want to make sure that we are flexible to the needs of partners and customers. And even that line is blurred quite a lot, where you have a customer like a Ford that, goes out and has the motions of a partner when they're trying to enable dealers and trying to enable, their ecosystem with a company like Stripe. So it's a very complicated, but I think interesting world when it comes to ecosystems today.
I think that's a very big decision for a company that's, not where Stripe is, obviously, but you're in that world where, you have that hub, that hub opportunity almost, where you could either continue kind of building features and building a bigger product, or you could build this platform. This operation hub is what HubSpot has. You guys have your app marketplace and the ability for other people, third parties, to build inside. And you can't do both, and you have to prioritize. We're seeing the fruits of that with all these giant app ecosystems that are just controlling the market now. HubSpot is the newest one. Stripe, you guys are on your way there, of course. So Connor and the team and other teams in Connor's position kind of have to decide how deep they want to go into this world. Connor has A8 Labs now, so they're very much committed to working inside these ecosystems as a developer and a solutions architect, and still supporting and servicing on top of HubSpot, as well as the products that they build and merge between the two. So the idea there and the thought process is, okay, well, how much of this do we want to do? What is the cost and the benefit of all of this? And how much can the service provider really bring to the table when it comes to building and supporting products inside of our ecosystem versus another third-party integration. And the two of us, the two tech companies, work together to build whatever that feature is to connect deeper with each other. So in the service provider realm, you have Aptitude8, you've got A8 Labs. Some of the financial implications of what you're doing as an agency. When a platform partner comes to you, so let's say Jira saw what you're doing with Tim and Stripe. They saw A8 Labs and they come to your inbox with some opportunity to build on top of Atlassian or maybe, I don't know, Zendesk or one of these others. They want you to do what you did with Stripe with them. What are some of the things you think about? What are some of the focuses that you have to make sure are in place? And then, of course, there is an incentive there that pulled you into this ecosystem. What was that? And what made you guys decide to go down this road with Stripe?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the key pieces, especially as people start to look at services provider partners and other pieces, like you only have so much focus and so much attention. I think everyone sort of says like, come and do this thing with us now. And I think that relationship certainly takes some time, but I think the other piece is like really understanding what that opportunity set is, right? So for us, Stripe's huge. Stripe has tons and tons and tons of customers. Stripe is adding new customers all of the time. And Tim didn't share, like in the notes for this, the volume of Stripe is just like outrageous in scale. And I think that the piece for us when we look at somebody like a Stripe is Stripe reached out to us and said, hey, you guys are really successful in the HubSpot ecosystem. We're launching this partner program. We're trying to expand into it, and let's figure this out. And by the time that they had reached out to us, and they made significant investments even since then, but what they're coming with is we have the educational resources in place to help you guys get up to speed and know this. And you already have developers. You've already worked with Stripe, use it internally. We'll help you understand how to sort of position this on the services side. We have some go-to-market function at the base level and in the form of like MDF funds, and in more large scale levels of actually joint go-to-market and sort of helping with cross-beam and support and some of those elements, right? And being able to have that go-to-market piece. And then the last function is we're really sort of committed to this as a strategy, and Stripe's made huge investments. Like Tim can say the number, but Caitlin told me recently, she came back from the Stripe event, like the growth of Stripe's partner team in the last 2 years is like 0 to how many people is it now, Tim?
Yeah, we have 111 today.
That's crazy. That's so many people. And I'm saying it needs to be at that number. But the point is that Stripe as an organization has said, we are going to invest in partnerships. And here are all the ways that we're going to do that. And here's what that investment looks like. And so for us, we look at that and say, this isn't a company hired a partner person and they're going to try to do something and that's going to fizzle out in 12 months and like not going to go anywhere and our relationship ends with them. It's really, we are building a relationship and an investment into Stripe as the technology partner, and Stripe isn't going anywhere. Their investment here isn't going anywhere, and it's only going to deepen and expand. And when we look at sort of like where to point our attention and our time and our focus, I think that investment signal is the biggest driver that says this isn't going to end with the one relationship.
So good, Connor. Okay, so we want to talk about co-marketing and the actual function of what you guys are putting out there here. Just to kind of summarize that, I mean, the incentive for you to take resources out of Aptitude8 and put it into building out on top of Stripe. It was largely the investment that Stripe was showing on the partnership side, is what I heard. You just saw all the signals were pointing to this is going to be a very strong relationship. You're going to have a lot of support from Stripe, and they're putting so much resource into this partnerships operation and this partner team and the partner function that you wanted to be in that. You wanted to ride that wave with them, right? So teams out there, of course, if you're looking to do more of this, you've got to bring more to the table than just, hey, we've got this many users and this much going on and a few pages of API documentation. So Tim, let's talk about this. So you've got Aptitude8 up to speed. So the timeline there, I'd like to hear a little bit about that. But then you guys are in this function now where you've got a built product, you've got use cases and case studies, you've got mutual customers, and you're going to market. What does going to market mean? And what is the timeline? And what are some of the things that you have to put in there? and some of the keywords that we like to hear. And let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, let me share broadly some of the experience of bringing Stripe Partner Ecosystem to market, working with our partners like Connor and others around the world. It's interesting to hear that we are perceived as a very large company because we have grown very quickly, but I come from IBM, and a lot of the folks of my peers come from these large enterprises, and so we're like, Stripe's pretty small. We grew from actually 3,000 people when I joined 18 months ago to now 8,000 people, which is incredible. Like, I've never been at such a fast growth company ever in my career. And so as part of that, what we found as it pertains to the ecosystem, we've had to ask everyone that we engage with to kind of slow down before we can speed up. And meaning that for so many at Stripe, they don't have a partner background. They don't know much about go-to-market with partners. So like, what is co-marketing? You got to explain that to a lot of folks here. What is co-selling? How do you do co-selling? Oh gosh, am I going to, you're taking deal away from me. Why are you letting a third party into my deal? So those types of cultural things are barriers to how much engagement we can have and how much activation of ecosystem we have internally. And so those are unique characteristics of many SaaS companies that are, let's say relatively within 10 years of being born, and us included. So while we have brought in a lot of folks with enterprise experience, so much of our cohort here, from engineering to sales to support, you name it, to marketing, have been more of a direct motion. And so we've had to instill a lot of enablement internally, a lot of programs that just meet up with partner, a lot of programs of like, these are partners that do these things very well in your geography. A lot of coaching on, well, what happens to a specific deal? Let's take a few use case deals through the cycle and show how you're actually going to benefit. And you should talk about services very early in the deal cycle. It's not going to harm your deal. You're going to only ensure customer success, as opposed to the perception that, oh gosh, I'm going to add this much more dollars into the deal and put things at risk. So a lot of that is cultural change that we have had to lead the company through. So that's kind of selling internally. And then the other piece, like going back to what I was saying about finding those allies and having to pitch ecosystem and what we're doing, everything from tooling internally, like for the portal, and then linkage to our Salesforce CRM, Sales Cloud, to the data that we have around different types of partner business. All of that involves investments of time and money and people from other cross-functional folks. And so we've had to sell that internally. And what I found is, bringing them along the ride is fundamental. And how do you do that? We did that first by putting forward a stakeholder map, which I think is a fantastic tool. I really recommend it to anyone in a complex environment where you have a lot of people that you depend on, which is pretty much everyone, including you both. We all depend on others. We had a steering committee. We also had very consistent communications that went broadly across these stakeholders. So we brought them in the journey with us. We brought them on the boat with us. And then celebrating the milestones. I'd say I probably didn't do that enough to celebrate the milestones along the way, other than our big launch. And kind of some things going toward there. So those are just some tips that I would recommend in terms of building the journey. In terms of go-to-market, like the specific things that we've rooted ourselves in a cycle of, you want to build with Stripe, market with Stripe, sell with Stripe, and then ongoing engagement. So that cycle is where we've rooted a lot of the programs that we offer. So for build, as an example, we have solution blueprints and toolkits that we offer for services companies. We have integration guides and a lot of documentation around that. We have teams out there on the ground that are working with partners. Connor mentioned earlier, but he's working with our teams. And that's one of the unique differentiators of where we are right now, is that we have scaled up very quickly. And so for a lot of those partners, like an Aptitude8, that engage with us, that we think are high value, that we see a lot of potential, we will spend time with you. But we also have a lot of self-service elements for those that are in the longer tail that may not be ready for the scale and investments that like Connor has put forward on his side, we have a lot of automated capabilities in the program to help them, to help that cohort get to the same level of success. And then when you talk about like marketing and selling, we have all sorts of toolkits and campaigns in a box that we offer across our different product types, and enabling different types of use cases out there. And then we offer financial incentives. Like I'm in the business of creating pipeline and sales through partners. That's the bottom line. And the more pipeline I can get, the more successful we will be, and the more that we can, just keep adding to this engine. And so as a result, one of the top things that we look for are deal registrations inside of the portal. We have a new business incentive that provides compensation for partners to do that. We don't resell. We're an API business, so reselling is not in our DNA, and I don't foresee it being in our DNA anytime soon. We're creating the value and working with partners to do that, like we talked about earlier. And then ongoing engagement is the other piece of just programs of everything from events that are local events where we come out and have a session together, either bringing partners together or having individual partners. We will do that with customers as well, to then engagement with us on roadmaps and other things, are all things that are part of the SPE that we put forward. And I think those elements are all go-to-market. For me, they're kind of basics, but for me also, it's a learning journey that we've started upon, and we will continue to pivot and think about what's really needed as these relationships that we talked about earlier are complex. And we have companies like Connor that's developing a platform, but also doing services. And, you have all sorts of complexities like that we want to make sure we are able to help all partners, depending on, no matter what flavor you're going to market with.
I love it, Tim. Okay, so a lot to unpack there, but I think I don't want to go deeper into co-marketing because we talked way too much about co-marketing, but there was a post on LinkedIn yesterday. I think I was just reading the comments. Someone was talking about what co-marketing is, and in the comments, some people were saying, oh, it's when you market two partners to get them into your programs. Someone else said, no, it's when you give them assets to sell your product. Okay. Yeah. But it's not well understood, to your point, Tim. I don't want to beat a dead horse. Go back in episodes. We talk about co-marketing a lot. What I do want to talk about, Connor, is you have to make the decision to go into this relationship. It's going to take a lot of resources, time. And as a business owner, you have to obviously look at ROI of the relationship. And it becomes more imperative and more risky when you're building product around that, because now you're breaking off and you're starting to make strategic decisions on how this new A8 Labs impacts the revenue operations, RevOps services that you guys are selling at Aptitude8. And I've been in your shoes, man. It's very tough to sit there and say, okay, well, how does this impact the service side, and how do they work together, and how do we make sure that this isn't going to take us down a road that turns into a dead end? So Stripe is at the table. You guys are making some decisions. You're going to have to hire, you're going to have to brand, you're going to have to co-market, you're going to have to bring people into this, and you've got to make it all worthwhile. So what are some of the things that you think about? What are some of the key aspects of this relationship that you had to make sure the box was checked before you went deeper into it? And then just talk us through the mentality of what it's like building this new service,
Sure.
or sorry, the product side.
What's really interesting. So if you're, I think one of the big things is like, we're not an agency. We're very much a technical consulting firm. And so we already have the development and the product capabilities and all of that's already in-house. If you are a services agency or an organization and you're thinking about building product, I would like really stop and slow down and think about like, is that the business that and are good and are want to be in? And they're radically different businesses. And for us, we don't have like a product arm. There are two completely separate companies with two completely separate P&Ls and two completely separate business models that it happens to make a lot of sense for somebody with a high degree of expertise on both of those to run both because they help each other. But ultimately, we think about Aptitude8 as just like the first and biggest partner to A8 Labs is honestly the way that we think about it. Versus how does A8 Labs serve Aptitude8's needs is not really the way that we look at it at all. And I think that that's reflected in our relationship with both Stripe and HubSpot on that side, right? Like, so Aptitude8 is a services provider to Stripe. We have Stripe certified developers and architects, and we come in and we do Stripe services for folks on top of Stripe. Zebra, which is an 8 Labs product, is a Stripe ecosystem application. And those are two completely different relationships that sort of roll up into the same partner team, and they're sort of involved in the same thing, but ultimately they're two different approaches. And I think that 8 Labs is a SaaS technology business that loses money hand over fist. And 8 Services is a profitable services organization that's sort of rapidly scaling off of that. And I think they're very, very, very different business models that approach it in different ways. But I think that there is a benefit to, if you are looking to go be a technology provider in some of these ecosystems, working with and connecting with some of the services providers. And I think if you're a service provider, finding other technology partners works. I mean, we see it with labs where we have other HubSpot partners that are building entire services streams on top of Zebra, and they're starting to learn about Stripe, and it'll probably end up being an acquisition channel for Stripe partners, because it ends up just being a way that people get exposure and cross-pollination. And I think that's really the name of the game, is how can you create as much cross-pollination as possible? And inevitably that sort of creates value.
Oh, I love it. And Tim, what I want to hear from you now is you're looking at these audiences, or sorry, these personas really, and you're building out your program and you're trying to bucket personas, and you're looking at Connor's agency and you're talking to them. Maybe you've already decided to reach out, but how do you define agencies like Connor's, and what are some of the questions and discussions that you guys have internally about the fact that Connor does have a product side and a product department that are building on top of Stripe? Of course, that's valuable for you, but there have to be some reasons to say no to maybe other agencies that could look like Connor's on paper. But just what are some of the things that you look at when you're bucketing these different personas, and what are the personas for you?
Yeah. So I guess I make a distinction between personas, which is like an individual. So an alliance manager, a sales engineer, a solutions architect, a developer. Those are personas to me. And actually, we do address those and have journeys for them. But we also have partner types. And
partner types. That's a better definition.
At the highest level, I bucket those, our program, but Stripe buckets those into technology partners, which Connor is, consulting partners, which Connor is, and then embedded payments partners. And these categories then have subgroups ranging from, like, I'm an individual accountant firm to I'm a payment consulting person or company, to I'm an ISV, I make software, to I'm a lab, so I do services, you name it. So going back to this notion of a complex business model and different ways that companies are coming together by themselves and together partner to partner to go jointly pursue customers, we recognize that's happening. While we have these 3 cohorts of partner types that we organize against, and each one have specific programs and benefits and requirements, one of the things that we absolutely recognize is that folks converge, and we need to adopt and make sure that we are providing a program that can adopt to the multi-layered business model. And so that's on our roadmap. We're not there yet on that. We have a long way to go on that. And what we are learning are, well, what are these patterns that we're seeing a lot of? And a lot are, a consulting company that decides they want to make their own IP and go resell it in some way. It could be a platform, it could be an app, it could be software, whatever it is, a repeatable solution. But that's one flavor that we know exists. Similarly, you have software providers out there that want to spin up services of some sort. So you have that as well. I mean, there's a lot of different patterns that we are seeing, and we're trying to be data driven so that, at certain intervals of the program, we'll revisit our partner types and say, where do we need to really double down for our programs to then bring that pattern to life? So if it's a consulting firm that has a product or IP that they are going out and selling as a product, maybe that's a pattern that we need to create a better program around and enable through a number of mechanisms, through that life cycle, build, market, sell, engage, like I talked about. So that's kind of where we're at. We have a long way to go, but we're also hugely a growth mindset where we want to observe and gear into where we see momentum.
Okay. So I want to go back to Connor for 2 seconds here and talk real quickly about the enablement aspect of support and then where this is headed. So you guys have been partners for how long now, Connor?
Like 6 months, 8 months, something less than a year, but not like 4 months, long enough, but not ancient.
Okay. And did you have product built on top of the Stripe product API, whatever you want to call it? But did you have a product built before that partnership, or?
So when we came on as a Stripe partner, we sort of had decided to go deep on. So we were already building Zebra was on our list of stuff pre-Stripe relationship, and then I think the Stripe partnership and seeing and hearing sort of their investment level and what they were doing sort of moved it to the top of our development queue. Versus we decided to do it based on Stripe itself.
Okay. And how much of the Stripe partnership is bleeding into Aptitude8 and I mean, on the P&L of Aptitude8? Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at, we're looking to do 8 to 10 million in revenue next year. And we'd like to see Stripe 30 to 40% of that next year if possible. So like we're pretty committed to expanding the Stripe relationship, and HubSpot services is like 90 to 95% of our revenue for this year. So we're really looking for Stripe to be a big major partner, major player for us next year.
So $2 to $3 million is what this partnership could mean to your organization, both A Labs and Aptitude8 as a whole.
Yeah, that's just on the services side. So I'd sort of take product completely out of it. And yeah, I'm looking at that just as sort of like Stripe value added technical services for sure.
Okay. And then there's the words like commission and, you know, what incentives are Stripe really bringing to the table that enable you to do more, sell more. What are those top to bottom?
I think Tim talked about this a little bit. Like, I think there is some sort of a new business incentive or something right now. We don't really even consider or think about that, right? I mean, we're operating a 8 to 10 million professional services business, and like whatever commissions we're getting are going to be super low level line items for us that just don't matter. The thing that we really value and care about with Stripe is, you know, they did a big in-person event in New York. We got to spend time with people on the solutions architecture team and the partner team. And not only do we have sort of access to those people in a digital virtual way of like, hey, we're working on this project, can we chat with somebody and sort of get some support here? But also that relationship building goes a really long way. It ends up being somebody is like, hey, we spent some time at Seaport and I'd love to, you know, reach out to you. We're working on this deal. And I think that's really one of the highest value pieces. And then I think attached to that is, I think the thing that we really value about Stripe's investment into the education and the certification piece is like, and I think this is actually a lot of contrary to the HubSpot universe, right? Like HubSpot's education content is very surface level, and Stripe's investment, I think this comes from being a developer product sort of at its core, is extremely in depth. The certification process has a lot to it, and I have a lot of support on talk to us as you are going through all of these pieces. And for us, that gives us a level of education access that we just don't have in other places. And I think that enables us to sort of go deeper with Stripe faster than we otherwise would.
Okay. And one more thing on that. So the education, the certification, how much of it is just focused on the product and API, and how much is focused on selling, supporting, building a business on top of that API?
Yeah, I think there's certainly both. I don't know where the percentages land. I don't know if it's half and half, but like both of those are absolutely checked off. There's both the technical piece as well as here's so you should think about sort of like the go-to-market and the sales motion and some of what that looks like. For us, it's funny because I think that part, we're like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Like we do this for other places, but I think having both of those certainly matters, especially if you're coming from, you know, we're a dev shop and that motion is a little bit more foreign to us versus the technical piece, which is maybe a little bit more instantly known.
I ask, sometimes that question gets some awkward responses where it's, yeah, you know, it's 100% just focused on developing on top of the product. But with Stripe, and we're going through this now, Tim, I don't know if you knew this, but we're integrating with Stripe Connect as we speak. We'll put both developers that are focused on that side of it through some level of training, maybe a certification later, not quite yet. But the big thing is, yeah, we want to be more involved in the Stripe ecosystem as Partner Hub, and what is the return on that if we do get deeper into just the certification, the program itself? What is the ROI on that? And a big part of that is, we want to get business out of the Stripe ecosystem. Yes, being there is step one, but there's 50 steps after that. And that's what your team is there to enable and support and make sure that I see that carrot, that giant carrot of I'm going to build this, but it's not just to have a place there and have that functionality. It's to get that bigger carrot. So anything on that, what Connor said, articulating that carrot for partners, potential partners.
Yeah, I think that's right. Look, we provide in the training and certification, we do absolutely do technical as well as, the business side of it. So it is both parts. But ultimately, it's up to the partner to take that information, that knowledge, and activate it in their business as an individual as well. To take that certification and what does that mean? Is it just a credential that you put on your resume, or do you really bring that to life with your customers and knowledge and have true eminence, domain eminence around that and be proud of that? So yeah, we are very much gung ho on ramping up our training and certifications. We are in fact rolling out a new associate level certification for payments professionals, which is an easy to achieve item as opposed to a typical developer path, which is dozens and dozens of hours. This is just a few. So things like that are what we are listening to feedback on, pivoting and making it easier for partners to do that.
That's a whole other episode in itself. We could do another 50 minutes on certification stuff. I posted a poll on LinkedIn asking how valuable certifications were to service providers, the ROI, and honestly, the results were bad. It was a very low ROI is what most service providers say about certifications in general. And I think part of that is, and I asked in the comments, and yes, certain people agreed, is the certification is really superficial product API, nothing else, no business acumen around the ecosystem that you're getting into. I think that's what most certifications don't do enough of. So it's good to hear that you guys are doing that and you're enabling agencies, not just to complete the build, but what do you do next? Okay, so let's get into final thoughts. Connor, if you're talking to the potential ecosystem plays like Stripes, the Stripe of 5 years ago, maybe those CEOs or product teams out there that are looking to enable service providers to build on top of their product, any words of advice that you want to reiterate?
Sure. I'll give the one I just give HubSpot leadership all the time. But I think that Tim and Stripe do this really, really well. And I think other people are getting there, which is you can go wide and you have to enable the services providers as well as the technology ecosystem to be able to go deep. And that is a level of technical customization and sophistication, and having the APIs and having the level of depth that someone can really expand upon the core product in a big significant way, but also have the go-to-market motion that enables for somebody to come in and wrap a solution and wrap a service around your core product. And what that ends up doing, and like Salesforce, I think is the canonical example of this, but like 60% of Salesforce's revenue, they don't sell, they don't service, they don't do anything for. Like partners go and sell it, they service it, they capture it, they provide it. And that's really the angle. And the only reason that people are able to do that is because Salesforce focuses on how can we allow for people to go really, really deep on our product, and how can we allow for people to build solutions on top of our product. And then other people you become a commodity that's included in someone else's solution, and effectively that becomes free revenue for you. And so I think that's really the strategy to focus on. And that excites people like us because ultimately it makes our job easier.
Tim, final words on what Connor just mentioned, advice to the other partner teams out there that are looking to do more of what Stripe is doing?
Yeah, I think if you have a growth mindset, that's probably the foundational level of what I would advise, but you're driving a movement. So for those that are professionals like me building out partner ecosystems at your companies, you're driving a movement of cultural change, and you have to recognize that. So it takes a lot of just the block and tackling of communications, of running projects, of things that you would just sometimes take for granted. I'd say that's one, just piece of advice. Another piece of advice is, know when to start, know where to start in terms of, don't try to take on too much, but declare where you think you will have success. And, there's this whole notion of like recognizing that you're an ingredient in someone else's solution, as opposed to trying to build that solution. And so that's that fundamental aspect of why should you even build an ecosystem? So it's being carried out there. I'd rather be carried out there by 1,000 people than to build one thing by myself. And then just have fun doing it. This is the best part of it. It's great meeting great people like yourselves.
I love that analogy, the ingredient analogy. Very, very thought-provoking. Cool. Yeah. Well, you guys, I congratulate you on the success. Connor, you're doing some amazing things. Tim, you've got a huge team and lots to do and get done. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot from Stripe and the partner program that you guys are developing. I'm super excited to be involved, as small as it is, but we're very excited to be involved as well. So thank you guys. Thanks for taking the time. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. Reach out to Connor or Tim if you think you need something from either of these two. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Al.
Thanks, Alex.